Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome back to hashtag WeAreMovieClub. I am Kamurai.
And I'm Charlie. Hello, everybody. You
What is
nearly said
going on?
you nearly said gaming division, then, didn't you?
No, my brain stopped working for a second. So, I don't know what, I just didn't have anything. I was like, do I think hashtags?
Welcome to.
Do I beat the cat? This is Tux. He's fluffy.
Oh.
Okay, so Charlie was making fun of me.
Well, yeah, I do anyway. But for those of you that looked at the Apple keynote this week, where they unveiled the new iPhones and the Apple Watch and all that kind of thing, you also everyone that uses Apple and iTunes will have the new U2 album absolutely free. It was kind of just a thing that happened, but there was actually quite a backlash because people were like, "But I don't want a free U2 album." So one of the most popular articles on BBC News at the moment is actually an article on how to delete said album, which I thought was quite funny.
It wasn't they had the right to download it. It was that it was already downloaded.
Yeah, it was already on your iCloud, so you kind of had it there whether you wanted it or not. So you can't actually delete it. You can just hide it.
So you can't. Oh, that's stupid.
Yep.
Just think of the potential issues you could have if someone infects that on distribution.
Well, this is the thing. People thought it was some kind of virus or an iTunes hack.
It essentially is a virus. It's something I didn't request to be there. That's ridiculous. That's just dumb. Again, I'm already laughing by the time you said Apple keynote speech.
Yeah.
Because I don't have a lot of respect for them as a company. They make fine hardware. Their OS isn't bad. It's generally safer, but it's underused, which is why it's safer. That's the main reason.
Yeah.
But they're full of themselves, and this is another thing where they tried to promote their exclusivity to try to make people jealous of their users and their thing, so they suck you in. And I'm glad it backfired on them.
I still have an iPhone 4S because I can't be asked to buy a 5 or a 6.
I can't be asked at all.
I'll be moving back to Android once my contract expires.
Android. The problem I have with Android, though, is that I have no idea what my OS is called. I don't know if it's Jelly Bean or Ice Cream Sandwich, or Caramel Popcorn Delight. I don't know. You know? And
yeah.
I can't exactly remember how to find out. Because I'm used to PC stuff. I'm a PC fanboy, really, when it comes down to it. Oh, here we go. Android 4.0.4, which gives me the information I need to find out the other bit, but usually there's a colorful name or something associated with it.
Yeah. Anyway, should we talk about films?
We do occasionally talk about movies to emulate the great John Bain, the cynical bit, the total biscuit. That's video game stuff. I don't expect anybody, but
that was lost on me. But,
well, he's from your country.
I know, but I just don't watch his stuff.
Sorry.
PewDiePie's from your country. You don't watch his stuff.
No, he's not. He's Swedish.
Is he not? All right, fair enough. There you go.
Yeah,
Shows I know about him as
well. Game Theorist did a video about why PewDiePie got famous and how he broke out like he did. It's a combination of having like the most popular series of videos that have longevity because you can always go back and watch it. It doesn't have to stay topical. And then he moved. He got big, or he got not small in Sweden, and then he like moved to like whatever is halfway between you and Sweden.
Mm-hmm.
He moved there for a little bit. Then he moved to England, and then he moved somewhere like in the Midwest to East Coast here, and then he moved all the way to LA. So every time he moved, his network grew. Because the way YouTube distributes your video is partly by location, partly by interest. partly by connected users, whether it's your subscribers or your subscribees. And then things like hashtags and again, like topics and stuff. It's why we were heavily linked to a bunch of people's channels. We technically still are. So movie review stuff, like for my stuff and for yours and whatnot, gets distributed on that basis. I think I definitely seen a drop of recommended stuff in our collective network drop since I unsubscribed from a couple channels. So I think there's some merit to it. But yeah, John's from England. I think he lives in North Carolina now.
Somewhere in the States, yeah.
Is that right? I don't remember. I just know that him and Jim Sterling, who's also English, and he lives in like Missouri or Mississippi or something, like somewhere in the South. I know because I know it's like a 4-hour drive. He said to South Carolina. So he's got to live on like the border of Alabama and Mississippi. That's got to be.
Yeah, he's got to be around there somewhere.
Yeah. So. Anyways. Oh man. Okay. Let me get my series garbage out of the way, I guess, and then we can actually talk about movies, because you actually watched more movies than me this week.
I watched 2.
Which I really watched 1, and then I watched our pick of the week, like at the end of last week. So.
Go for it.
Okay, so on YouTube there is a series, I think she at least headed it if she didn't get it started, called Job Hunters. Christina Horner is involved with it. I'm a big fan of hers. But I'm also a big fan of Tara Theodonis, and her husband is the current writer-director guy for it. But they're all great people. I got to meet them at VidCon. Season 2 has launched. I think we're currently on episode 3. So I did want to mention that rather briefly because I actually got to see all these 3 episodes at VidCon, and there's some really funny stuff in this 3rd episode especially, and wonderfully developed stuff going on in the story. There's one character named Tiffany, I think is her name in the series. It's not really a spoiler because of the way web series work, but it turns out she's a synth. She's a type of robot that looks like a human. So season 2 is all kind of like dealing with this big plot twist of her being a house robot. So far, at least.
That's okay.
I finished up seasons 2 and 3 of Melissa and Joey. Melissa Joan Hart, if you wondered where she went to that show for a little while.
Yeah, just in case you wondered where she'd gone.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, because I knew her really from Clarissa Explains It All, which we'll get to in a minute. And then she got really big as Sabrina the Teenage Witch. And then she kind of went to the Ether. So occasionally, like, I find people like this. Like, I don't know if I ever mentioned it, but Party Down. I watched that a couple weeks back, and Lizzie Kaplan's on that show, and she's actually really funny, along with Justin Armstrong, I think. Really great, but I knew Lizzie Kaplan from being the girl everyone thought was gay in Mean Girls.
Okay.
I don't know if that's one you've watched or not, Charlie.
I have, actually.
It's a great movie. Don't be ashamed of that one. So many quotable lines. It's also where I discovered Amanda Seyfried, and I think it's the last great movie that Lindsay Lohan did before she went insane.
She went insane.
She went fucking bonkers. It'd be one thing if she was still putting out good movies and she actually had, like, this hot thing going on for her still, maybe. But, like, I think she looks like she went through the rough, and she's not making good movies these days. So I don't know what her deal is. Okay, so that was that real quick. Anime, let's get anime out of the way. I'm sorry.
That's fine. Anime is good.
I
We
hate
like
when I
anime
talk
movie.
for too long in one stretch. Because unless you've seen something, you typically don't have a lot to respond on. Unless you want to talk about Mean Girls for a second.
um,
You have any comments there? Yeah, give me some comments on Mean Girls, man.
um, it's a 14-year-old lad.
Say again?
It certainly has its upsides if you're a 14-year-old male.
No, okay, yes, there's hot chicks in it because the 4 lead girls, let's see, it was Rachel McAdams, Lindsay Lohan, Amanda Seyfried, so beautiful, and Lacey Chabert. All of them are real stunning girls, especially at the time. All pretty good actresses. Lacey Chabert, I don't think gets credit for as much because she's only been in really low cast roles.
Mm. But no, it's for what it is, it's a decent film and it portrays the sort of stereotype in particular social group. I thought quite well, at least.
Oh yeah, I like if you want to look at it like as a commentary on societal cliques, it's great for that. Multicultural understanding, great for that. It's so brilliantly written that really, you look at the small individual scenes. If you say God, what is it? Like just if you say like None for Gretchen Wieners or You Go Glen Coco, people recognize that still after all these years.
And that's it. I suppose that's just a. Oh God, sorry. That's just a sign of how significant and successful it was at the time.
Yeah, I mean to me it's pretty timeless. I think we'll finally get to a stage where they're like, why aren't they texting on their smartphones? But oops. Oh, okay, phone's not dead.
He's breaking the joints.
Okay, so I did take an adventure back into anime. Occasionally I do this. Typically, anime movies are not... There's not a lot of them. And there's not a lot of good ones, in my opinion.
We've watched 2 for WeAreMovieClub.
We watched some very good ones. Brooks and Neil picked out really well for those. But where I really like anime is in the series. So if you've got a long involved series, it's very daunting to get into, but it's way more worth it typically. Otherwise, you end up with these smaller series that were made off a small manga. So the story's pretty much complete, and then they change it into a series so they can pace it correctly. Where we run into issues, and I have this problem with America's sitcoms, is that people try to write it on the fly instead of writing an entire season and making that into a movie or into a show.
Yeah, so it either falls apart completely, or you get the sort of plot holes developing quite quickly, and then it just makes it rubbish.
Yeah, and if you want a perfect example of that, look at Heroes.
Yeah, I haven't got to Heroes yet, but
happened and the writer's strike hit and just ruined it.
yeah, because from what you've told me, I haven't actually got to watching it yet. It just completely fell off the cliff, didn't it?
Well, yeah, because one, they were writing on the fly, because I don't even think they had the same writers from the first series on the second. So that was the first problem. Secondly, they're writing on the fly where the first one was obviously planned out before anything happened.
I suppose in something like Heroes, it's going to be so noticeable, isn't it? The differences between the two, that is.
Yeah, it really is, and it shows, especially when you're dealing with all that time travel. But the writer's strike actually shortened season 2, and then when they brought it back after the writer's strike with new writers past that point, they obviously had no idea how to write for Heroes.
which is a shame.
Yeah, it really is, because the reboot, if they go back and they do that, because they're planning on something, I think they can, if they do it right, it'll be amazing. Actually, How I Met Your Mother just ran into this issue too, like when it wrapped up. Something to do with the series finale. Like, because obviously they filmed all the stuff with the kids all at once, and then they had to intersperse it throughout the seasons. Because it stretched from being 5 seasons long to 9, which was a bad move, in my opinion. Okay, but I'm talking about anime. So, like, anime doesn't suffer from that typically because most of the time they don't do it on the fly unless they've got American pressure. See Full Metal Alchemist, which was actually a better than Brotherhood to me. But Heaven's Lost Property was 2 seasons long. It's about a pervy little boy who just... I say little boy. He's like 15, 16, probably. He's a high school student. He just wants peace and quiet. Doesn't that sound nice?
That sounds ideal.
Yeah, so he doesn't want anything crazy. He just wants to relax and do his thing. And then this anomaly shows up, and a girl literally falls from the heavens and lands in front of him.
So it's just getting better and better then.
Yeah, so like the worst possible things could happen. He's part of this insane event, and then now there's someone who his responsibility is to save and then kind of care for because of what's going on. But she's got wings, so he doesn't know what's going on. And it turns out she's this robot angel thing. Pretty quick you learn that. And the whole series is the new world, let's call it, heaven trying to get their lost property back, which is this angeloid that dropped down. And Tomo is dealing with it because she can grant wishes. And then like another one shows up, and like every time one shows up, you got to figure out like, okay, is she trying to kidnap Icarus, the first one, or is she there to be friendly? What's going on, you know? So he ends up kind of getting this harem built because his best friend who lives next door is a hot chick that he likes, and then he's got these angeloids that keep showing up, and I think he gains like 4 of them in the 2 seasons, all under protest. But like he's still trying to attend school, and then like he starts giving them an allowance and teaching them things because they're not all that smart. So there's this wonderful like family dynamic building between him, his friends, and the angeloids. So like that's what kept me in it, because the action stuff's a little crazy when they start fighting. But it's interesting, so it's not like it's gonna make me turn it off. And then there's a lot of stuff with boobs because he's a pervert. Panties and boobs. Like we occasionally stop and like they do like a whole episode and like, how is he gonna get his hands on some boobies this time?
Is that literally the premise of that?
Oh, it's like they stop the story and they have like a whole filler episode of like, Icarus, I need you to turn me into a girl. So that I could get into the girls' locker room and I could see them all in their panties. Yes, master. And he's got a female form of his character too. And you would think like this makes him like a horrible, irredeemable character, but like they make a very nice point out of it, not objectifying the women, but having him objectify the women. So like the show itself doesn't turn me off in that respect, though we see his big flaw is that he's a pervert. Because other than that, he's like the most stand-up guy. He's super responsible. He just wants everyone to get along and be quiet. He goes out of his way a lot to try to make everybody happy, especially when all he wants to do is like sit in his room and take a nap.
Sounds like a bit of a contrast then, yeah.
Yeah, so but I mean every great hero has a fatal flaw because you have a suspension of disbelief in a story, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, so if things are too perfect, then you don't believe it. You don't want to pay attention to it.
Hmm.
Okay, so to get anime out of the way here, I was like, okay, what's the next recommendation thing? I was like, oh, Chaos Head, this is on my list. Let me watch this now. So I watched that this morning.
How did that go for you?
What the fuck? Occasionally anime decides, we're going to ask you a question. But you
Oh,
don't get
God.
any answers. You remember Cars, right?
We don't want questions, we just want stuff to watch.
You hated that so much.
Didn't hate it, I just...
You hated having all these questions and no answers.
Yeah, but then again, I probably should have watched the second half of it.
Yeah, because that's where you got all your answers.
Exactly.
They did a lot of setup, and it was hard to get through, but it was ultimately worth it. But so this is kind of like Fuikui and Steins Gate for anyone watching who's anime fans. It's really like those two had like an acid-headed baby. Because Fuikui messes with reality and like what's our relationship, what's love, like what's our purpose. It's very abstract in its thing. Steins Gate is all about time travel and like what reality is in relative to our sequence of events.
Hmm.
Chaos Head is very much asking like, what are we? What is reality? How do we prove that we're real?
Oh, God.
Yes, exactly. Hang on to that feeling for like 8 episodes in a row.
How long are they on? How long are the episodes?
They're like 20-minute episodes, if I'm right. I honestly can't remember. I should probably have known that. But I don't remember them being very long. It flows really well, I'll be honest. Let's see if I can pull it up on here a lot easier. But it's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 episodes. So if I open one up, like maybe it'll tell me what the runtime is. 26 minutes. Yeah, so they're short episodes. There's only a dozen of them. But the whole thing is that he's a NEET. He's a nerd who sits on his computer, plays video games. He calculates out like how he can miss school, like, and it won't affect him as much. He's really big in 2D girls instead of real life 3D girls.
Okay.
Like he collects little action figures and stuff. So like the big trouble in his life is that all these 3D girls start coming into his world. Alongside the same time when like the serial killer starts going around and killing people, and then like one girl shows up thinking that he's the serial killer. He starts having visions of another girl being the serial killer. So there's all these questions of like what's real, what's actually happening. Do I exist? Oh.
It's gonna take a lot to keep going then.
It is. It was kind of intensive, and then if you just kind of like sit through it, it's like, okay, oh, okay, so we're gonna have a whole episode that explains things. Okay, good. But it's really interesting because, just go ahead and spoil it. Like they get to the point where you can real boot thoughts, like you can create things by thinking things, because the whole concept is that everything is a machine. People are just bioelectronic devices that can send signals.
Mm-hmm.
So if I can transmit my signal to your brain, then we can share that consciousness of thought. So I can project thoughts into you.
I'd rather you didn't, but okay.
Movies. I don't know. But so like they have these thought swords, these D swords that they use to fight the bad guys and each other when it comes to it. And they can real boot the swords, so like they actually make swords out of nothing, essentially, out of thoughts.
Right.
So there is a way that I could spin this and make it look really good to trick you into watching it, but I'm not going to do that.
I think I've got too much there already.
Yeah, that's my point. That feeling that you're getting from me explaining it is what the show is. And if you don't find that intriguing at all, then don't watch it.
Not hugely, no.
But in that same vein, like I just watched The Machine, like right before this, and that was all about creating an artificial robot. It's a better premise than the Terminator, but they didn't get its budget, so they not as many cool effects. But this guy gets forced to make this robot project in the image of his dead partner. So he has that guilt trip the whole time of looking at her face.
Jesus Christ.
But it's a learning robot, so like it's essentially a child. It very much is like clowns are people. Like she's afraid of spiders. Because the original was. So she's like this weird copy Cylon thing. And it's all about questioning like what it is to be alive, like what defines a person being sentient. And they try to control her because they wanted a killing machine robot. And what they got was a sentient robot. So even though they can't recreate the sentient robot, they're trying to figure out how to make the sentient robot subservient so that it doesn't take over the world.
That's just not going to happen, is it?
No, and it very much doesn't. There's a really badass scene of like her just kind of like running through army people who looked very British. Now that I think about it, well, they had like your kind of uniforms, the weird berets. Yeah, but like I was like, if I just wished it had the budget that Terminator had, because it would have been a better movie. No joke.
Well, that's my reaction right there. I can't even fathom words for it.
Based on that description?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't do justice then.
No, it's one of those where it just sounds like there's way too much going on.
There's a lot of thinking, because it's a smart movie. It's got a smart premise, and it's probably why it didn't get the budget, because people were like, it's not blowing up enough stuff. This isn't interesting. Because it deals... I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, that's probably exactly what I would have said if it had been me making the decision on that one, but...
yeah, but it's... Go ahead.
We watch films to switch off, though, don't we? We don't... Well...
You might.
For me especially, I don't watch a film to be sat there thinking for 2 hours.
See, if I don't do that, then like I get bored, because my brain's always going. I can't shut it off.
Fair.
But no, yeah, you like a lot of people have a certain amount of escapism in movies.
That's what I prefer.
Go ahead.
No, so that's what I prefer. I prefer that level of escapism.
Well, as I said, which is why you like movies like Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. Fuck, I just forgot like every Charlie movie ever.
Yeah, just look at my recent picks and you'll see that escapism is probably the common denominator.
Well, yeah, and even in action movies like Val Helsing, that's very much an escapist, crazy movie. There's not a lot of depth to that one.
No, this is true.
Now it's making me want to watch Beautiful Mind, thinking about that, even though I don't even like that movie that much, but it's exactly the vein of movie that we're talking about, where you have to engage your brain along with your suspension of disbelief. But so why like talking about escapist movies, why don't we go into your first item on the list there?
I watched Brave this week.
It's so good.
Is it though?
Oh, you didn't like it?
I won't go that far. Because I liked it, but it was not worth the hype that I think it had.
Now,
I
okay.
found it weirdly. I found it to be distinctly average.
No, no, really average?
Well, from a,
No, okay. Go
it's
ahead.
definitely not one of the best Pixar films.
Well, I would argue with that, but
There, there are definitely better ones as far as
I'm not saying
I'm
there's
concerned.
not. Like, I put Wally and Up above it for sure.
I'd
Would
be
you?
tempted to even stick The Incredibles above it.
Oh, you see, no. As much as I like The Incredibles, I would put Brave at least equal to, if not above,
Mm,
The Incredibles. But
I'd
they're
say,
very
I'd say,
different movies.
well, yeah, they are. You know, everything's different about them. But no, Brave from a visual standpoint, I thought was excellent, and having read sort of the developments that came about as a result of it, then I can certainly appreciate it. But I don't know, I don't know, the story just, I'm not sure. I just think they could have done the story a bit better. It was just kind of, you know, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm gonna rebel. Oh shit! I've inadvertently turned you to a bear. Oh my god! I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That.
Well, it does conflict very well. I'll say
Yeah.
that much. I'm not going to say there aren't holes in it, um, which doesn't like automatically disqualify it for me. It can still be a good movie with holes in it. But there are some very strange things involving the bear and the family dynamics of like, hey, we should open and talk to each other. Now we're not going to do that. Where like I think there's points where like the dad won't listen to Merida, but
Mm.
he stops when like the brothers show up.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
I think one thing that might have made it a bit better is because once the Queen turns into a bear, Merida kind of drops this whole reluctance act entirely, which you could have had the oh god, I don't want to agree with what you're saying, but the fact is I absolutely have to, you know, the reluctance could have been made a bit more obvious, I thought,
Reluctance.
if there was any to be had.
I just don't know what you mean by that.
Well, you have the whole premise of the first part of the film is that, you know, Merida's about to be betrothed off to some clan son, but she obviously doesn't want
Yeah.
it, so she kind of ruins the whole thing, and then there's the massive argument, but which leads to the spell being cast, and then suddenly Merida's just full of repent and remorse, and you know, almost
Well, it's
seems to,
guilt.
well, yeah, but you don't see, you know, despite the guilt, you don't see any kind of, you know, sort of retention of her previous feeling. You know, you don't see them try and I'm leading you off on a wrong tangent here, aren't I?
Well, no, I'm just saying I would disagree entirely. It's very much about her trying to take control and solve the situation. She's being very proactive continuously throughout the movie about the situations.
True.
But it
That
goes
is
from
true.
being self-centered in the beginning, where she's rebelling against her parents, kind of being a little bratty, honestly, but she's standing up for what she believes in. So, like, I still respect it. And then once her mom turns into a bear, there's something real to deal with.
Yeah, that's true. But
It's
overall, I did find it funny. It did have its funny moments. That's probably because Billy Connolly was in it, and he is incredibly funny.
Is that the
Um,
comedian you told me to go check out?
yes, I didn't
I,
actually realize he was in Brave until I watched it.
I got the name wrong and I looked up the wrong guy because I was like, oh yeah, I watched this guy. He's great. Let me type his name in just so I don't forget. Um, oh yeah, okay. Now that I see him, I definitely know who that is. Um,
Yeah, no,
the
I
other guy
think
was a young guy. Go ahead.
that is the kind of character that Billy Connolly does very well. That
Because
kind of
he was the dad then, right?
yeah,
Okay.
it's the kind of
Um,
I'm Scottish and I'm gonna, you know, just be a bit of a joke, which is exactly what kind of I can't think of anyone I would have preferred in the role of the king that is clearly under the thumb of his wife.
I'm sure there's a couple people that probably could have done it, but I think he's definitely a top contender at the very least.
Yeah.
Now, I've got a couple questions because you said you didn't like the hype. Um, so I've got more of a question and a statement. Did you get to see the short that goes along with Brave?
No.
Okay. There is a short that I saw in theaters that gets played right before Brave that essentially is Brave, but in a different form, like in a condensed 5-minute form.
Okay.
So I watched that, and then I watched Brave, and I was like, I just watched the same movie twice. Just one took 2 hours and one took 5 minutes. It's probably longer than that. But the original, the short, is all about a kid who goes with his dad and his grandpa to go clean stars off the moon. Like, so they actually have to come out of the house. They break out the ladder, and they climb the ladder all the way till they get to the moon, and then they fall off the top of the ladder to the moon. And they bring like a fishing pole with them so they can get back at it. But what they do is they go and they sweep the moon and get all the stars off of it. So
we've all done it.
Yeah, exactly, like you do. But Grandpa uses like an old street broom, like a long push broom, and Dad uses like a sweeper, like a little whiskey broom or something. So Grandpa's like, my way's the best. They don't talk, but like Dad's like, you're gonna do it my way. Don't listen to your grandpa. And so like they're sitting there arguing and fighting about how to clean everything, and the kid finds his own way to do it. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's exactly what Brave is like, here's how you're supposed to do it, here's how I want you to do it, and here's how other people are doing it, and then in all the chaos, Merida just kind of finds her way.
Yeah, so, I'll agree with that.
So there's that. The statement more so is, or I guess it's a question of whether or not you agree, is this is the first movie that Disney definitely was involved with. Wait, were they? I'm thinking Frozen.
I think you're Frozen, yeah.
Yeah. So this is the first Disney Pixar, either one, because people get them mixed up anyways, movie where like the princess saves herself. Like she's a legitimate main character. It's computer generated. I think if we limit it like that, it's definitely the first. And as far as I'm concerned, she might as well be a Disney princess. So that was what the hype was a lot of the feminists coming up and being like, yes, this is what we want from movies, more of this, more of this, more of this. So they all got their skirts in a bunch, which is good. I actually am happy about that. Because I promoted this as much as I could to people too, because I want to see more movies like this.
Yeah.
I mean, like I always have this weird thing, like when Scottish movies and stuff come up, I just wish the quality was better. Apparently, the solution is to make it CG and just let the Scottish voices come through.
Well, one thing I said in my review, which is on my channel if you haven't watched it, is that I was willing to bet that some bright spark had gone onto Yahoo Answers and wondered if that was what Scotland was really like today.
Do you guys even have bears?
No, not anymore. We killed them all.
But there were bears once upon a time on that island?
Yeah, but we ran them extinct. Extinct in this part of the world, anyway.
Okay. Sorry, I was just thinking about like how bears must have grown, because it's like big cats. Like they grew in parallel all over the place. It's why you have tigers in like 3 different spots, and then you have like lions and leopards and cheetahs all in Africa, and then jaguars in South America, and panthers in North America, and like they're all kind of the same thing with like some variations. So
yeah,
bears. Go ahead.
They were basically just hunted to death.
I was gonna say like snakes, but that supposedly was Ireland. So.
Yeah.
Almost got that mixed up. Yeah, you guys have some nasty little asps and stuff up there, don't you?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You got, and I don't know if it's still an issue. I know I researched it a way back. I know you guys had a lot of hybrid newt problems.
That's going a bit beyond me now.
Okay, well, the short version is that jackasses would buy like foreign newts, like Spanish rib newts and stuff, from other parts of Europe, and then they would release them into ponds and stuff there, and then they would breed with local species and make hybrids,
Okay.
which can't breed and then eat all the food.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, so anyways, but overall, like if you had to pass or fail it, Brave gets a pass or a fail.
Oh, it'd pass. There's
Okay.
definitely nothing. It's just nothing wrong with it, but I think I expected it to be better than it was.
And you haven't seen Frozen yet, have you?
No.
I was gonna say, like, I'd be very interested to see how you compare that to Frozen, but because I think Brave is the better like feminist motif to it, but like I think Frozen was the better movie.
I've definitely heard better things about Frozen, so I will get to that at some point. But
Definitely worth your time. I would save that one for the lady.
yeah,
Cuddle up and watch that one. She'll be kissing your tears off your cheek for you. Sorry, such a dick. I acknowledge it though. Okay, so that was Brave. All right, you had a special surprise for us before we get into the movie pick of the week.
yeah. I was about to say, which order do you want to do this? Because either way, I know I'm going to have you, well, you wanting to talk for a while. So I didn't know whether you'd want to go to that first or go for.
Okay,
pick
well let's
first.
do. You're building this up for me, and I'm going to be disappointed if it's lame now. Let's talk about Witch Hunters. So why don't
Let's
you
talk
start
about
with
Witch Hunters.
why you picked this one?
I picked it not just because it came up on my Netflix queue and that I'd meant to watch it anyway. You know, that was just a happy coincidence. But it was one of those where, you know, obviously you see Hansel and Gretel and suddenly, oh my god, we're talking fairy tales here. So I just wanted to see how the hell they were going to marry that up with Witch Hunters.
Well, if you think about it, the original story is, I mean, it's in the movie. It's where they get captured by the witch in the candy house, and they shove her in the oven and escape.
Mm.
But the version that you and I probably know is the nice version, where they go back and find their parents and go home and have tea.
The version I knew was that the father finds the breadcrumb trail, finds them down, and ends up helping them defeat the witch, and then they all go home happily ever after.
The whole point of the breadcrumb trail was that the crows ate it, I thought.
Yeah, he found bits of it. I don't know. Either way, yeah, whatever. But it was an interesting, it was an interesting film. Let's put it that way.
Okay, well, my point there was that the original stories by, I think that was the Brothers Grimm, honestly.
It was a Grimm, I think. Yeah.
The Brothers Grimm especially, very dark fairy tales. People don't realize like how dark Sleeping Beauty and Snow White and The Little Mermaid and all these stories originally were.
Mm.
But like even like Hansel and Gretel was very dark, and then so I think I don't know this for 100%, but I think this kind of mirrors that mentality.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
I think so. Yeah. It definitely has that sort of dark edge to it, which I liked actually.
I did too. That was not the part where I had problems with it.
What did you
At
have
all.
problems with?
Well, I was gonna say let's talk about what we liked about it first.
Okay.
I mean, it definitely had a lot of great action.
I liked the shitload of gratuitous violence.
You have such a weird thing for violence, being such a peaceful little guy.
I just see things like that and just go. I'm a bit like a goblin in many ways.
I could totally see us going like into a Blood Bowl match, and you just sitting there like giggling like that, eating.
I do sometimes.
Popcorn or something.
When we play Blood Bowl, I do actually have a little chuckle to myself on occasions.
We haven't done that in a while. We should.
We need to do that again.
So like that was definitely it, and I liked expanding the universe, involving like more witches, because if there's one witch, there's multiple witches.
Yeah, that's true. And bringing in other fairy tale elements, like a troll.
See, and I didn't know where that came from, and I don't get the premise for it. but I like the result.
I think it's just more that it's like a fairy tale element. I don't know if there's a specific premise to it.
Well, because, like, and I would argue that everything has a premise to it. Like, everything leads back to somewhere unless it is, like, Tolkien. Tolkien was the basis for a lot of things.
That's true.
If I remember right, he's like the basis for most dwarves and elves you see these days.
Yes, there is a lot of influence in there now, isn't there?
Yeah, and then, I don't know. We'll move on. But now, correct me if I'm wrong, too, because I can never remember, even if I go back and watch it. Was that troll their dad? Was their dad's name Edward?
Think so.
Okay.
I know the mother was revealed to have been a witch. Sorry, spoiler alert, but...
Yeah. So we knew that was going on, but like I couldn't remember if that was their dad. Like if they turned their dad into a troll.
Yeah, let's have a look.
So there's that, and so that brought in like some really neat aspects once you start getting drip fed that information about them being part witch, and having the troll involved. Because then the troll actually gets free will within the commands that he's given by the witches. That did bother me, though, that it wasn't really like a troll, like a separate race. It was more like a troll that was a magical creation. So like a golem, essentially, maybe.
Yeah, I've always had the impression that trolls were only like 2 or 3 feet tall as well, rather than 8 or 10 feet tall. See,
I really wish we could get a better definition for little trolls versus big trolls. Like, I hate calling Santa's helpers elves. Because to me, they're gnomes. Like, they meet every description of a gnome. They can have pointed ears, fine. But to me, elves are tall. Trolls are big creatures to me. But there are several instances where trolls are small. What comes to mind when you hear troll?
Little ugly things that live under bridges.
Wait, okay. You're obviously not talking about the trolls with the big hair.
No.
You're talking like Billy Goat's Gruff, right?
No, I know what you mean, yeah. Yes, I was.
So you picture those being tiny things?
Well, not 8 feet tall things that could snap me like a twig, no.
See, even in the Billy Goat's Gruff, I picture a massive troll.
No.
Like, either he wedges himself under the bridge, or it's a large bridge. Like, you probably didn't see it, but like in Once Upon a Time, that's exactly what I picture when I think the trolls from Billy Goat's Gruff. It's these, like, okay, he's about 6 feet tall. They're at least a head or two taller than him. So let's say 7 feet tall. And they're kind of stony looking, but they're not really stone. Kind of wearing rags, growly monster types.
I love how we do have really different opinions of what we expect.
You know what? The trolls in Frozen are probably exactly what you picture.
That's a Frozen reference I don't get yet.
Yeah, I know, but like I'm just saying, when you watch it, you'll be like, "That's what he's talking about."
Oh my god.
Yeah.
But what didn't you like about this film?
The tech. Like, I couldn't pin down when it was supposed to have happened, based on the technology, because somebody was running around with like a 1915 to 1940 German Luger, one of those words. Like literally like the same type of guns the Germans would have had like under Hitler's reign.
I love how that's your factual inaccuracy, whereas mine is, would someone from that time period really be wearing such a modern-looking leather jacket?
You know what? I did point out her pleather pants in my review, but You know what? I'll be honest. I didn't pay a lick of sense to his jacket.
I did get the feeling that Jeremy Renner had just stepped out of a time machine.
Yeah, the production. It was almost like the production quality was too good. Is that fair?
Too good in what way?
Like they bought expensive costumery when they really needed like more simple stuff.
Yeah, I can see your point there. Because it's set in. Well, I kind of set it in like a late medieval, early modern, so like sort of 16th, 17th century Germany here.
I could say 17th century because it was before electricity.
So yeah, I was expecting their outfits to be a bit more relevant, but a bit more factually accurate possibly. It looked like he was walking in a leather bomber jacket. I'm surprised he didn't have leather jeans as well.
No, because they sprung for pleather. And I'm not saying like they looked bad in their costumes, but it didn't fit. It didn't fit the scenery.
Mm.
Now I did not have a problem with the fact that they had an electric stun gun, because it was supposed to be. They were supposed to have some fancy technology for the time.
So
But because yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'll say that doesn't. Oh god.
Well, I was gonna say I could set the time period, so I didn't know how far I had to jump when I saw stuff like that. Like the guns they had were really interesting, especially the payload that that fold out long rifle, which I want because that thing was awesome.
I did like the steampunk taser though. That was quite cool.
There was a taser.
The electric stun gun thing, I just called it a steampunk taser.
It's stun gun is melee, taser is ranged.
Yeah. Details.
It's not. It's. If I said I hit you with a bazooka versus a pistol, you would know the difference.
Yeah, but I'm lazy and ignorant.
Damn it, Charlie. You deserve more noogies.
But no, overall I thought it was a good pick.
Okay, so here's kind of what I was feeling, because like we picked Val Helsing and you were all excited about it, and then it turned out that you didn't like it nearly as much as I did, I thought.
Mm-hmm.
And I was kind of feeling the same way, because it's not a good movie, but it's got a hell of a lot of good action to it. It's enjoyable to an extent. I definitely don't think I want to watch this again for a very, very long time.
They're making a sequel. I just disappointed you now, haven't I?
A little bit.
I'm sorry.
It's like someone's putting money down for this. Fund something else. For fuck's sake. Tusk is coming out. Like, let's get a sequel. Well, technically that has 2 sequels planned already.
I was about to ask what it was, and I've just remembered, so you don't need to explain that one to me.
It's the Walrus movie.
It's the Walrus movie.
And I still haven't gone to see Guardians of the Galaxy because I'm an idiot.
I'm just gonna wait for it to come out on DVD. It's cheaper.
So it is, but like I really wanted to see it in theaters at least once, just because you do get a different experience with certain movies. So maybe like I'll break down and do a double feature at some point.
Yeah.
Or I'll just go after work at some point. I don't know. My world's not fit for going to the cinema anymore. Because then I'll go to the cinema, I'll pay all that money, and then some fucker will talk on his phone, and I'll have to murder him, and I'll go to jail, and we don't get to do this anymore.
And joining me live from prison.
Yeah, that's gonna happen.
Joining me live from the state penitentiary.
Guard, I have a podcast to do. I'll go back to being raped? Okay. Fucking silly ass world. Okay, so now do you want to do your big surprise?
Yeah, because I don't know how. Well, actually, I do know how I ended up doing it, but I would have finished the first series had I not been left at work this afternoon. But I've now watched the first half of the first series of Ruby.
Oh, you did.
Yes.
Oh man, I just did a review I filmed a review for this last night.
Ah, right. I didn't know that. That's a happy coincidence.
Yeah, it is. I didn't rewatch it because I thought about it and I remembered enough to know to talk about it. But I would very much be willing to watch it again, even though I watched it within a month ago.
Mm.
And it's not that long. It's like what, an hour 20?
No, it's a bit longer than that. It's touching 2 hours for the first series.
Oh, really? I never would have guessed.
Yeah.
It does drag at certain points when like they get into weird conversational stuff.
Mm.
And you're like, okay, whatever. And then we get into something that's like, oh, well, this is important to the story, or it's a big-ass action scene. So what was the last thing that happened?
I've just got to the point where Team Ruby and Team Juniper are now official. That's
Team
about as far as...
Juniper. Okay, I couldn't remember the other team name.
Yeah, that's as far as I've got at the moment.
So you did get introduced to Nora.
That's fun. Nora's going to be fun for this series, I suspect.
Yeah, she's the caboose of this series.
I much prefer her to Caboose, though.
I do too, honestly. As much as I love Caboose, I think Nora's adorable and fun. And there's just one scene that I always think of when I think Ruby, and Nora is it's. I don't want to ruin it because I want you to enjoy it when it comes up. But it's Nora doing something. You've seen her weapon, right?
Oh yeah.
What is it?
The big ass gun.
Have you seen what it transforms into?
No.
Oh, I can't ruin it then. But it involves that big-ass gun weapon. And it's a really neat moment because you don't expect it from Nora, and then she puts her own special spin on it.
I did like it, though, in the very first episode where Ruby's in the store and basically just cha-ching and the massive scythe comes out of nowhere. It's just amazing.
For anyone watching, you can go over to youtube.com/hdkb or search for or go over to Zing Manga Wolf. I did an interview with a young lady at RTX. Yeah, that's the right words. She was doing a Ruby cosplay, and that was such a great. It's still my favorite cosplay of the convention. And she had handmade a big ass scythe.
I think that's where me watching it started, because because I've tried watching Rooster Teeth stuff before and I just wasn't too fussed by it, so I've kind of subscribed and then unsubscribed from at least twice. But I watched that. Yeah, I know. But I can't remember how I got back into it. I think it was because of the whole Red vs. Blue stuff we've been doing. So I just sort of went to see what else they've got, and I started watching The Know. So I now subscribe to that. So I thought, right, okay, fair enough, I'll give it one last chance. And then
what are you watching over on The Know?
Just their stuff, just the stuff. I'm not watching the podcast. I do not have time to watch an hour-long show. So it's just.
But you're watching their news segments?
Yeah, which I think are better than SourceFed.
They are much better than SourceFed, and they're, to you and me, they're relevant information on the gaming world instead of world news.
Well, yes, this is it.
Large difference. I still think Meg Fraternity is ruining The Know, but, and this may be to her credit, they've started doing a wrap-up talking about all the news segments of the week.
Yeah, I think, well, that'll appeal to some, but it won't appeal to others, as I gathered by reading the comment section of the first one they did.
Yeah, I personally would like that if Meg wasn't on the show.
But no, I'm much more prepared to give Rooster Teeth a chance now. And then, like, so Ruby came up in like my subscriptions thing, so I thought, oh, this is the thing that Cam was talking about. I'll give this a bash. Watch the first episode. Oh, I've got to watch more of this.
It's super badass. It really is. I mean, I'm a big fan of Red vs. Blue. Obviously, I like Ruby. I don't really follow Achievement Hunter very much because
no, I don't follow that much.
I don't have time to watch gameplay footage as much. I'd rather make my own so I get to play a game. That's just how it is. Though I will suggest everyone go watch Bumper Boats.
Oh, that was fun, wasn't
that was
it?
amazing,
I did see that. Yeah, so I now watch Rooster Teeth's stuff.
Um, but yeah, but like you don't have to. I don't even suggest you try to follow everything they do because they do a lot of different stuff.
That's the thing. That's the thing I'm learning when it comes to watching stuff at the moment, is picking and choosing what I want to watch, rather than feeling I have some moral obligation to watch everything.
Yeah, but they're one of like a few companies out there that really are that expansive. I would say Rooster Teeth, The Escapist, and Polaris, and maybe DeFranco Inc. Are some of the top. And Bernie's even said this. Are some of the top ones that actually do this, where it's multiple entertainers doing multiple topics. Usually, somebody has a stick and they go with it. Or they. Go ahead.
But it also means that catching it with Red versus Blue means that I'll actually be able to watch it on a weekly basis rather than catching it from years and years ago.
Yeah, and we're still at a good point because I think we're only a couple episodes past the war on Cronus, which oh my gosh, I got the same feeling from that I did I think in season 9. Dealing with Project Freelancer, it's pretty good.
But I think with Ruby, you hit the nail on the head with the word badass, which is exactly what I felt it was. Like, this is, and I'm a big fan of that art style.
It's really good. It's very unique too to me.
Yeah, I've not seen anything. And to begin with, it felt a bit like how, this is going to sound weird, but a bit how the animation is now for Pokemon X. Their sort of cutscenes are a lot more that sort of almost fluid 3D, and this is just this is similar but much better. I love this style.
Now, to me too, it looks like a lot of it's using mocap to do certain things, but maybe I'm wrong. What do you see that at all?
I hadn't thought of that, to be honest. It's possible for some of it. You know, that certainly makes sense in some cases, but I don't know. I hadn't even thought of that.
Well, it's obviously not used everywhere, and there are some very basic animations that they do, like when they're walking, they've got a very particular stride to them. Unless they mix it up, and they have her like spin or something when they're walking. But they've got that weird splay finger thing, which I'm not against. But I noticed it in season 10 of Red vs. Blue because I watched it getting ready for next week. You'll notice in some of the mocap fixtures, the models just kind of go slack on their hands because the model, you're not mocapping all their fingers. That's just not happening. But you see this something similar in Ruby in a couple places. So I'm not exactly sure the process.
Whatever they're doing, though, it works.
Yeah, it's amazing. I give a shit how they actually do it. I don't even want to look it up because I don't want to ruin whatever magic is there. I'm just so glad you got into that and you're actually enjoying it.
It's excellent. I really do like it.
And that leads me into my apology to you.
Go on.
Dealing with Red Dwarf. Apparently I've done this twice now. I've gone and be like, I owe it to Charlie. I should probably start watching this. And I forgot about the first time entirely. I didn't even realize I did it. So I started up the thing, and it's like, why am I 20, 40 minutes in, whatever it is? Like, I had like 10 minutes left in the episode. So I went back to the beginning of the episode and started watching it. I'm like, how does he like this trash? There's no development. Who the fuck are these people? Why the fuck do we care? Turns out I started watching Series 9.
Ah, well, there's your thing.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm like, oh, now I just ruined it for myself. I can't even restart it right now.
There's your problem. Well, with actually Series 9, because Series 9 was only 3 episodes, or what we know to be Series 9. Assuming I'm thinking of what you're watching.
Well, now I want to look. Go ahead.
If you can find out what it is, because Season 9 is essentially, well, what has now been called Series 9 was a 3-part thing they did back in 2009, which was almost like a rebooting stroke TV pilot, basically for a new network to prove that, yes, we can do this, there is still an audience for this, let us do a series. It was done in a very cinematic style. There was no laughter track, there was no live audience. It was all done sort of basically on a budget to prove that it could be done. It wasn't brilliant, and it heavily divides the community. But for what it's worth, I thought it was quite good.
Correct. There are 3 episodes listed on Netflix, Series 9.
Yeah,
And it actually says series instead of season. That's very interesting.
Yeah, that would be back to earth. Yeah, that's. I would say it's skippable because it adds nothing to the canon. Whereas,
well, it's also the
earlier
last
series
season that's
well,
available.
yeah. So if I
go ahead.
start from season 1 purely for the fact that actually season 1 is really good, and if I ever get around to filming the review I said I was going to, then this is what I'll talk about, is that you get so much development in the first episode, and it's only a 20-minute thing, but it sets up for so much because there's like a massive flash forward in time, and it kind of builds on it from there. So I think I think the first episode's really good for development and setting the stall out.
See, and as soon as I can purge the experience with season 9, episode 1 out of my head, I'll go back and watch season 1. I just need to remember. What?
Tomato sneezes.
Well, see, that's one of those weird English American things here, because a series here is the entire show.
Mm-hmm.
But a series there is 1 season of a show.
Yeah.
So it's I don't know. There's no happy middle ground on that one. But with respect, series 1. Man, I had something else based off that. Oh yeah, it said recommended because of IT Crowd. Just makes me want to watch IT Crowd.
I think that's because it's sort of British cult comedy.
Okay, I can see that.
I think that's the connection there.
But but IT Crowd's so good. It really was. Okay, I've got the one topic. Well, really 2 topics. There's some about RT screenplay. Is that what you were talking about? That you were watching the No Now?
I think that might have been another reason that I got back into I got to Rooster Teeth, because I thought, I think I was watching your review for Face Off, which actually sounds like a quite good film.
Oh.
So I clicked through to it, and once I realised it was over an hour, I thought there's no way I can watch this. But I think that's how I got back through to it through there, just looking at that and realising, okay. But,
yeah, I think by 6 months in, JJ's gonna he's gonna rename it. He favorited my tweet saying let's change it to RT screenplay. It looks like it'll fix a bunch of stuff.
Oh right, okay.
So he's got my input at least. I guess that'll shut me up. For at least for the moment, but I think if he changes the name and then he breaks it up into a TV segment, a movie segment, and then Club of the Week or Pick of the Week segment, I think that may be the better way to do his show, because I like how it's formatted a lot, but I know most people don't like that.
Yeah, this is the problem. I don't have the patience to watch something that's long. Once it gets over about 25 minutes, my attention's gone. No,
and that's fine. It's not for everybody. I'm actually struggling throughout the day just to listen to shit in the background while I'm working. So, like, if I can feed myself throughout the week on podcasts, I'm happy.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why, like, the Polaris co-optional podcast is my favorite, because the damn thing runs like 3 to 4 hours. Someone's watching Ruby.
Shit. No, I'm not. I mean, iTunes has decided to reboot itself and just play what was last on. Fucking thing. Sorry.
No, it's a badass little song. Okay, so reboots. Like, it's all the rage right now to do reboots because nobody can think up any original ideas ever. Now, granted, I like things like Pemberley Digital rebooting Pride and Prejudice and Emma, but those are crossing mediums. They're transferring them from novel form to web series.
Mm-hmm.
Things like Spider-Man are getting rebooted just to reboot it because we need to make another movie or we're going to lose our thing. What's your ideas? Well, if this and this and this hadn't happened, like, well, let's just reboot it.
Yeah, that's just a way of trying to make money off it.
Yeah, I don't really like that so much. But out of all the stupid reboots, and Nickelodeon's just mishandling their properties in general, but I'm hoping they still have the rights to Clarissa Explains It All, because after watching Melissa Joan Hart on Melissa and Joey, I realized, A, I miss her, so I was really happy to watch that show, and B, like, she's still got it. She's still funny and smart, and she's looking good for her age too. She's kept well. So credit where credit's due. But there is no new Clarissa Explains It All out of all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, like I mentioned to you earlier, like Clarissa was vlogging before vlogging existed on Clarissa Explains It All.
She's a hipster.
Yeah, kind of. Because it was like 1994, 1996, before the internet was super popular, at least in the way it is now. And that was the show, is like, there's essentially a camera in her bedroom, and she'd go up there and talk to it, and like, we'd get to watch things happening in her life and her deal with things and pretend to know the answers. It was Clarissa Explains It All.
What?
And they even did the lame-ass do-it-yourself editing stuff that, like, people do on their videos. That, like, if you look at my shitty overlay, is probably a symptom. So it's really interesting that, like, they did that, and then it actually took off to its own medium, and they haven't gone back to do it. And I mentioned this off camera, that's right. I'd love to see them do it like Girl Meets World, where like Melissa Joan Hart comes and plays the new character's mom. Where she's like, well, you know, honey, when I was your age and I was dealing with things, I thought I knew everything too, and I did this. And she explains to her what the show was, and then her daughter goes and does it, or her son, or whoever it is.
Yeah, then you see the daughter's actually running with that idea and
making it her own thing. I mean, like, we would get like this really nice pseudo thing. Like, have you seen The Guild?
No.
Oh wow.
Sorry.
No, it would have been perfect for my point. The Guild was a show that a web series that Felicia Day made popular. It's kind of where she got her fame. And the main thing with it was that the main character, Codex, Felicia Day, would vlog to the camera, like, at the beginning and end of each episode almost. And then, like, so she would kind of, like, have this exposition of the characters and her thoughts where she's vlogging to the audience. So, like, we'd get this nice mix between, like, that and a regular sitcom. Or maybe even a new way to do kind of like what the Guild did. Yeah. I know you've never watched it. Go ahead, sorry.
No, I was about to say I was going to change it slightly and say I did have one thought that something they could reboot that I don't think had a good enough original run. Sorry, not official, original run, and that's Animorphs.
What's Animorphs?
Holy oh no, hang on, sorry, this was big in Canada. Animorphs was a book series that was aimed at kids, well, when it was out, that were my age, so like young teens, but it was kids
they're literally Animorphs.
Yeah, kids that could morph into animals. It was a young adult science fiction series, but it got a TV run. I think that was done it was done in Canada, I think, but it kind of got randomly cancelled after like the midway through the second series. And I thought the books were excellent. I thought the TV series was pretty good, but yeah, 6 episodes into series 2, it just got cancelled.
Hopefully you can see the dumbfounded look on my face. Can you explain to someone who has never had any experience into this how this ever existed past one book?
Because the concept was that it was like there was like a massive story arc about them fighting this alien race type thing, but they did that by morphing into different animals, so like each one because there was like a group of 6 of them. So each book would take on, like, the narrator would be a different one of the characters, and they would be picking up the story from that perspective and then morphing into something essentially new, or, you know, taking on something different. That was the kind of basis of it.
Okay, I'm looking at the pictures, and like I see a cat and I see a bear. I think that one's a dog, maybe. Is that one a potato? What is that? A bunny? That's a potato. Why does one morph into a potato?
I don't know. It's been a long time since I read the books.
Yeah, okay, so, and then one turns into a centaur? Yeah, no. I need a serious sell to get behind this one.
I think that potato one's a fake. Yeah, the potato one's a fake.
Okay.
That's not an actual thing.
Good. Because that's...
Yeah, that didn't happen, but they did. It was like 50 books.
Wow. Just burning trees.
But shut up. The premise was that they could only stay in this morphed state for 2 hours, otherwise they'd get trapped in it forever. So one of them actually did, and for like half the books he's a hawk. Eventually they find a way of reversing the process.
I'm sorry, they'd be lucky if the girl lasts 2 minutes as a big black bear.
She had anger issues, which made it entirely appropriate, because you just rip the shit out of people. I think she died, actually. One of them died towards the end. Like the penultimate
Spoilers, Charlie.
Yeah, spoiler alert. In the penultimate book, one of them died.
And to think, I was gonna make a Samurai Pizza Cats joke. And to me, I'm not trying to bash something you love, Charlie. I'm not. But just from my lack of experience with this, Samurai Pizza Cats is the less ridiculous of the two of these ideas.
Fair enough.
I just don't see it. I'm not saying it's a bad idea. I'm saying I don't see it.
I want to read them again now. Now I've said that.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Everything is not for everyone.
I don't know why, but
it actually sounds like it would make a good anime.
It would, yeah, it could make a decent anime, I suppose.
And like speaking of that, let's reboot Ranma 1/2. Fuck.
I don't know what that is.
For anyone who's an anime fan, Ranma 1/2 was a slightly older anime at this point. The whole premise is that there are this sacred martial arts training ground called the Springs of Sorrow or whatever. It's like 1,000 different ponds, and each one has its own tragic story. So, like, if someone falls in one of these ponds, it's like the pond of the drowned duck. Now, whenever that person is splashed with cold water, they turn into a duck.
Right.
So, like, there's one for panda, there's one for girl, there's one for pig, and so, and cat, and like each of these characters in the series ends up like that. So Ranma Saotome gets dragged by his father to this ancient Chinese training ground, and they both fall in. He falls into the one of the drowned girl, and his dad falls into one of the drowned panda. And they return to Japan to meet Ranma's fiance. Because Saotome's old friend Tendo, they agreed that like to keep their martial art training house together, their kids would marry.
Right. Okay.
So, like, they get a postcard saying that Ranma's gonna and his dad's gonna show up, and the way that the series kind of starts is like there's this panda and this chick kung fu battling through like little town Japan. And
right.
Like it flashes between that and the Tendo family, like, well, who do you think's gonna marry him? It's like, oh, it should probably be Akane because she's the youngest, or it should be the oldest. They start arguing about it, and they show up, and they're like, and she's like, I'm Ranma Saotome, Pleased to meet you. And they do that weird thing in anime where like they poke her breasts because they're trying to figure out like if it's a girl or a guy.
Right.
So they're like, well, Akane should probably marry her because she hates boys. So like before, because Ranma's an idiot, he doesn't explain everything right away. The panda just goes and sits in the living room with Tendo, and like Akane and Ranma will go off and train, like do martial arts together. So like the whole series kind of like that. It's like every episode's like, who are we fighting today? And then there's several characters who have fallen into the pawns. Like Ranma's childhood nemesis, or self-proclaimed nemesis, turns into a pig, like a little black piglet.
Okay.
So because he's Japan, he also has to try not to get eaten while he's a piglet.
Yeah, of course.
And then Moose turns into a duck, and Moose hates Ranma because he's in love with Shampoo, who turns into a cat. Ranma's terrified of cats, and also doesn't want Shampoo to kill him. But Shampoo is an Amazon who is in love with Ranma. Male Ranma hates female Ranma, and doesn't want anything to do with Moose. So there's a lot of like dynamic relationship issues that just build on themselves.
Sounds like it.
And if you're familiar with anime, that shouldn't surprise you in the slightest.
Yeah, oddly enough, I can see that actually happening.
Yeah, it seems very formulaic, and I don't know if it's a Ranma 1/2 formula, or if I don't know, or if like Ranma 1/2 even built that off something else, because it's not a harem show. It's similar, but it's not.
Harem scarum.
Do you know what I'm talking about when I say harem?
Not entirely.
There's a trope in anime where like it's focuses on a guy who ends up surrounding himself with a bunch of pretty girls that all kind of want him. So he has a harem, sort of. Whether or not they're into him is another question, and whether or not he's into any of them is another thing entirely. But there's the Tenchi Muyo is like the famous harem show to me. But Ranma 1/2 is kind of a pseudo thing because him and Akane are very much like, oh, I don't want anything to do with any of you. Boys are stupid, girls are stupid, but they both kind of like each other. So it's very different from most harem shows.
Right, okay.
But I don't know. Do you have another topic or something you want to hit?
No. I think we've touched on everything I had. I don't know if you've got anything else. Okay,
no, I'll go ahead and do my sign off, and you can take us out if you want.
Well, what's our next pick?
Oh, next week is Red vs. Blue Season 10. My last pick from Rooster Teeth until Laser Team comes out.
Yeah, for now.
When Laser Team comes out, I definitely want to pick that. But I think I'm done picking series for We Are Movie Club. I think we're gonna do traditional movies from now on.
And having seen his first two picks, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to be in for an interesting ride.
Really? You think that?
I think that.
We talk offline. Okay, so for the folks at home, real quick, of course my camera cuts out right there. So I am Kamurai. I do YouTube stuff on these channels. Thoughts and vlogs, video game stuff, movie reviews, and of course, We Are Movie Club. Which I will get the hang of this someday. You can yell at us on We Are Movie Club, or just me. Go over to yell at Kamurai25. Tell me I suck, it'll let you vent, and I won't care. So
he's a generous, kind soul, isn't he? But yeah, if you want to pick me up, I'm the other half of this terrible duo. You can find me at the Charlie M on Twitter. I am Snowdog140 on YouTube. You can find me on Gaming Division and We Are Movie Club. I do kind of frequent both every now and again. But other than that, you know, if you stalk me and find me, then, well, fair enough, you deserve that. But, yeah, I'm looking forward to actually seeing the last Red vs. Blue, because that'll be fun. Freelancer's going well, and, yeah, more stuff.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.